Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us, or me here live at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined today by Ryan Deeney, who will no doubt help me pick through the bones of last night's 2-0 victory away at Exeter City. A morale-boosting and much-needed victory after the result that we dare not speak about at Shrewsbury last weekend. Ryan, how are you? You well?
Yeah, a bit better after last night. As I was just saying to you beforehand, I didn't get to watch the game the weekend because I was on waiting for a flight back. So, to be able to sit down last night, watch the game, and just nice to come away with the victory, and comfortably so, really, wasn't it? It wasn't anything dramatic about it. It was just professional, job done, and get out there, get the 3 points, and move on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had 2 wins last night, actually, Ryan. Not only did Blues beat Exeter 2-0, but the promised motorway closure between Cullompton and Wellington in Somerset wasn't actually there. So that was probably an extra 40 minutes taken off the journey. So thank you to the Highways Agency for that. While we're on transport-related anecdotes, I'm sure the hours are going to fly by for everybody if we carry on at this rate. So just to lay the table, Ryan and I are going to talk through our main takeaway from last night. Chris Davies said post-match that it was the best game of the season, or Blues' best game of the season. We're going to kick that around, whether we think that's true or not. Obviously, what was notable was Alfie May was back playing centre forward in his best position. There were some defensive changes, so we'll kick those around as well. See where the promotion situation lies at the moment after last night's win. And Chris Davies also promised changes for the FA Cup trip to Blackpool this weekend, so we'll kick some of those around as well. So, main takeaway from last night, Ryan, what stuck out for you?
I suppose just trying something new. I know there's been concern around the sort of style, the inability to put teams away and maybe giving up a few chances on the break and so on, particularly obviously against Shrewsbury. It was kind of strange because, because we had the 3 centre-halves, it got sort of bounded around that we were playing a 3-4-3 or 3-4-1-2 rather than the sort of normal system. And I think within about 10 minutes of the game, you could really tell that it was exactly the same system. Yeah. It was just mirrored. So it was right winger out wide, left back out wide. Bielik sort of playing that role that Clara's kind of played this season. And again, we weren't particularly troubled. I know, opposition weren't great on the day. Let's be perfectly honest, this wasn't us sort of taking down one of the big guns and a really good team. But, you've got to do the job against the team you're playing. As we've kind of shown recently, we haven't got that job done. So to get the win, change shape, get the win. It worked okay on the night. Obviously, I know we'll get on stage sort of saying it was the best game of the season, but the main takeaway ultimately is that it changed it worked, and, you move on now, don't you?
Yeah, I think my main takeaway was actually I felt this was a banana skin. I was looking at how poorly things had gone at Shrewsbury, and then you sort of apply that to what had happened with Northampton and Mansfield, and you start to think of Blues being rumbled a little bit. Is the low block the thing that's going to confound all these plans, the League One low block? And then you go to Exeter, they're direct, it's going to be a horrible night, and that they're going to put bodies on bodies, and they didn't defend as deep as I thought they were going to in the end. But I thought it was a real banana skin last night, and I have to say, and we'll come on to this with Chris Davies' comments, one of the rare games where I didn't actually feel there was much jeopardy. Now, people could say, well, there was no jeopardy in the Northampton game, and they snuck a 1-1 draw with a last-minute equaliser. But for me, they did have some chances. Northampton didn't they? They had one cleared off the line, and another one that escapes me now. But last night, Ryan Alsop could well have got away with not being there. So for me, it was a real statement performance, not the size of the victory, but just being back in command, back in charge of a League One fixture. So that's what stood out for me. Let's come on to to Chris Davies' suggestion that this was the best performance of the season. Is that him gilding the lily after a bit of a slip up at Shrewsbury? or do you think there's some merit in those comments?
I've had a think back to the other games we've had this season, and I think when you look back, we had that excellent run when we played, all the top sides together, but we always had that 10, 15 minutes at the start of the game where we weren't quite right. Then you kind of move on to Lincoln and Bolton, which were good displays, but you also giving things away during the game. Obviously, Mansfield had that 10-minute spell. Northampton, we conceded. So in terms of just the general game, probably was. I think we conceded 3 shots all night, only one of those inside the area, which was that really tame header that was going wide. Set pieces, we actually looked pretty strong and solid defending those. Wasn't a bother all night. The shape of the team looked okay. It still feels like we've got another gear to go to. I think you probably come away from the game thinking, could we have got a third or fourth?
Yeah.
Particularly in that second half. The second half just felt like a half that was happening in front of us rather than anything notable really happening. But in terms of probably the most complete display of the season, it probably might be correct, particularly in terms of a league game anyway. It probably was about as comfortable as we've been all season, just not giving away anything really.
Yeah, when I was interviewing him post-match and he said that, you sort of your ears prick up a little bit and you think, oh, is that a little bit topspin because of what happened at Shrewsbury? And as you say, looking back on it, and as I said, there was never really any jeopardy. So that's a big sort of tick in the box. I'm glad you brought up the set pieces. I half wondered if, yes, they saw something down the Exeter right, which meant they wanted the left. They wanted to attack down their left. So that meant they needed the other centre half at right back. But I've sort of half wondered whether the extra body, having Bielik's extra height as in that right back and having another centre back with Ben Davies, I wonder if that was sort of also factored into the defensive set play side of things, because I think they were. I can't remember a first contact that Exeter won at set pieces. Certainly not on their set pieces. Ryan Woods was sending corners and free kicks in, and Blues won everything virtually. Davies won quite a lot. Clara won a few. Iwata won a couple as well. I thought there was a real defensive solidity about the defensive set pieces, attacking set pieces. It still remains an issue for me. And if we're comparing it to the other games, he's saying it's the best. I think Rotherham were handled very proficiently, but they had a little bit of a spell where they could have got back into the game. It was 89 minutes before Exeter had a shot on target. And for me, as I said to you earlier, this had a feel of Sutton United about it. They just weren't really in the game. And Gary Caldwell today has said, we controlled them when we were out of possession. But, Blues controlled them completely for the 90 minutes. So I'm prepared to have Chris Davies' statement about being the best of the season. So
I think as well, when you delve into sort of the character side of it too, obviously we lost at the weekend. We haven't won in 3. It's actually been over a month since we won a league game, given obviously the international break and FA Cup and so on. You've also, you're travelling down south. It's hammering down with rain, so you're trying to play your normal football, wet turf. It's one of those games that, you've said it could have been a banana skin last night, and it had that sort of feel to it, didn't it? You're going down south, it's pouring with rain, you're not won for a while. So to turn up and just get the win as comfortably as we did too, probably also adds that element of making it feel like it was the best display of the season so far. And it still feels like we have that other gear to go to, yet we still haven't quite hit that. I suppose you're kind of waiting for that game where we pen someone in and hammer them, and you end up scoring 4, 5, 6 goals, and it still feels like we haven't quite reached that point yet.
Yeah, we've been saying this for months now, haven't we? And I don't know if the missing ingredient is the final ball or if it's the tempo at which the ball is moved. I felt both were slightly better last night, to be fair. And actually, if Thor could have scored with 2 headers, should have scored with 2 headers, really. Certainly the first one for me is a chance that a player of his pedigree really should be getting on target at the very least, if not actually scoring. the second header, which came from Peck, sort of a lofted cross, he sort of had to run back a little bit and apply the pace on the ball himself. So, but he was in a very good position, so maybe we'll give him that. And then towards the end of the game, as it broke up and Blues were 2-0 up, Keshi Anderson had a couple of openings. Jay fizzed one past the post. It wasn't that far from 3 or 4 or 5, to be honest, I don't think. I wonder if we're ever going to get to this mythical land where every chance flies. And maybe if Iwata's the one that we give all the shots to, we might win 5-0. But I just wonder if that is indeed the destiny for this team. You'd think it would, because the managers would point to all the performance indicators, wouldn't they? They'd point to the possession, they'd point to the XG, they'd point to the touches in the opposition box, and ultimately that will count for a spanking at some point, won't it?
You'd think so. I think the main thing for us is, you see the goal against Shrewsbury, and you see the goal, the first goal last night that we scored, and when we move the ball quickly enough, we drag so many of their players over to the side that we've got such an overload on the other side of the pitch. Yeah. And obviously it's Iwata that's benefited the last couple of games, but you've got like the first cross, or I think when Bailey crossed the ball last night, you've got Stansfield, May and Cochrane at the back post. You've got Peck on the edge of the box. You've got Iwata on the edge of the box. Woods dropped in really deep to try and ferry the near post. So you've got that many bodies in the box, and you just think, if you can keep moving the ball that quickly and punching the ball that quickly, these chances are just going to come more and more. I think what we have a tendency to do, and maybe it's just a general control thing and an energy thing to sort of keep the ball moving and keep the opposition moving. We just seem to have this tendency at times to maybe make the easier pass backwards rather than trying to, continue punching the ball through the lines. And I wonder at times whether there is sort of can you just keep doing it? Can you keep punching those balls forward and make ball gets cleared, opposition come out a little bit, and straight away you're just punching the ball straight back forward rather than maybe trying to recycle possession and move it. Perhaps perhaps you lose a bit of control maybe doing it that way, and maybe we're not quite there yet. But yeah, I just wonder whether we can sort of really hone in on the team and just pepper them basically. We're kind of reaching the 19-20 shots, and maybe with the way teams are at times, you do wonder whether you can maybe hit that 25 to 30 shots a goal and, have 10 shots on target and just, like I say, hammer someone. Yeah,
it was 19 last night, wasn't it? But I think there weren't bundles on target.
We had
three on target. Yeah,
I think that there was 2 shots between half time, and I think it was that McGuinness header in the 78th minute.
Yeah,
and just 2 shots for that entire thing. One of them was a Stansfield header. I don't actually remember. So the other one was a Williamson free kick. So there was just nothing in open play really for half an hour of the game, which has happened at times. But yeah, can you find that sort of killer, ruthless instinct? I guess because they
Yeah, I'm just wondering. You look at the identity of the goal scorers, and it all seems to be Stansfield and Iwata at the moment. Williamson's chipped in with a few, but you have to go back to some mid-October before you find somebody that wasn't Iwata, Williamson, or Stansfield scoring a goal, and that was Keshi Anderson's brace at Lincoln. Now I'm wondering if that's a systemic thing. That's just where the players are. Iwata is not where he is by coincidence. That's a position he takes up. Jay's on penalties, and he's getting a few chances as well. And Thor is getting in the kind of same spaces that he's been getting in to score his goals. I wonder, is it just a systemic thing, or do we need more responsibility and more quality from the likes of Jay and Peck and not Jay, Keshi Anderson and Peck, and maybe even a set piece goal or something like that, just to ease the burden a little bit on it's the deadly duo, isn't it, at the moment, Peck, Tomoki and Jay.
No, I think you're bang on. Other people have to step up, don't they? You can't rely on the same 2 or 3 goal scorers every week. You've got other people to step up, like say, whether that's a set piece, whether that's someone just getting in the box and on the end of something. The wide players aren't really contributing as much as maybe we need them to in terms of the goal scoring on the goal scoring front. So yeah, I'm with you. Other people need to step up, really, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Alfie May, of an obvious candidate, back playing as the number 9 or the one up front last night. What did you make of him?
It was all right.
Exactly.
I think you almost expect, given sort of all the calls for the change and whatever, you almost expect that like Stansfield and May are both going to score a double because they've switched positions, and they were okay. I thought they dovetailed quite well. The way Exeter played it sort of reminded me similar, actually, of the way I used to set us up in the 3-5-2, where you almost had 5 at the back and the other 5 would sort of try and push on. But all it meant was that we were 5v5 with their back line, so May and Stansfield tended to dovetail, where one would drop off, the other one would spin, and there was just loads of space to run into. We didn't really make the most of it. He worked hard. He got about. I thought he moved the ball okay. Probably nothing too different, really, to when he's played in the 10 position, and probably same for Stansfield, really. Maybe they need a little bit more time. Maybe May needs a bit of confidence back to play as the leading man again. But yeah, he was all right. I don't think there was anything more than that. I don't think he had a bad game. Just he buzzed about, did his job, and then come off after, was it 65 minutes or something?
Yeah, 75, I think. Yeah, I don't think I can talk you up from all right. It was fine. It was good. He did his job, as you say. Probably had the one chance, not even a chance, it's a half chance, isn't it? And quite early in the game, where he's got his back to goal and it comes in from the right. He takes a touch and he turns and shoots, and it gets blocked by Kramer, the central defender. I think he's on loan from Brentford. Looked a really good prospect to me. So that was the only real chance in front of goal. There was a break, wasn't there, where he lobbed the ball over the centre back on halfway, and the centre back handled it and ended up getting booked. I wondered if he'd got the ball right over the defender, he'd been able to go through, he might have scored one then. But yeah, it was fine. He didn't do enough to say, right, I'm the number 9, God's back in his heaven, and Jay Stansfield's going to have to get a game wherever he can get into the side. But then, as you say, that's not necessarily going to happen in one game, is it, in his first appearance back? So yeah, I think the point you make about them dovetailing quite well, I agree with that. I think there was, the interchange of positions was quite good. The link up was good, and maybe, I don't know, is the side stronger with Jay as the 9 and Alfie behind, or with Alfie as the 9, Jay behind? What do you think is the greater sum of those two particular parts?
I suppose you probably have to see more of Stansfield and May playing together. I think the problem with one of the issues I probably have with Stansfield dropping off into that 10 position, I think he's quite what's the word? Someone who's probably better playing off the cuff.
Instinctive,
that's the word, yeah. I think that's more. So there's times last night where he's picking the ball up in space, sort of looking ahead of him and just running into bodies, and he got dispossessed a couple of times, and you wonder maybe if May's in that position, does he just keep hold of the ball and move it and play? Is maybe Stansfield better as the 9 because he can be a little bit more instinctive, get onto the end of things. But I suppose you could probably also argue as well that, May played up top, he scored 4 in 4, one of them a penalty, and Stansfield's record probably isn't as strong. So there's probably points and counterpoints all around, isn't there? I think as long as they keep, I kind of get the impression the most important thing for Davies is that they work hard and do the work off the ball, and the quality will just show. And the one thing you can guarantee with both of them is that they're going to run the socks off and work themselves into the ground for 65, 70 minutes or however long they're asked to play before you make the other change. And I think as long as they're doing that, then it probably doesn't matter too much whether one's as a 9, one's as a 10, and how you play it from there. Yeah, no,
you're probably right. There may not be a definitive answer to that question at all this season. So, and I do think you're absolutely right about Davies. Really being intent about how the running that the players, that those two particular positions, whoever's in those positions are doing, absolutely key. Yeah, and then obviously Dykes comes on as well and does what he does towards the end. the defensive setup, we're used to seeing Laird as the width on the right, so he plays right back and Cochrane sits back. This time it was Bielik was sort of shoehorned in onto the right, and it was Cochrane was given license to get forward. I quite like that, because I think Cochrane's got some good quality when he puts the ball into the box, and if he's the one given the license to go forward.
I thought it worked really well.
Yeah.
I mean, he made it was his delivery for the Williamson cross, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
He had a key role in the second goal. Good words up. He had a key role in the sort of second Williamson header as well, where I think it was him that fed Peck into the channel after taking the set piece. So, yeah, I think he's got real quality down there. I think as well, I feel like we do a lot of our work down the right-hand side regardless and have done all season. It's good to have that ability for someone to get the ball out of the feet and just deliver the ball from that left-hand side as well. I think Peck does so much running down there. You've always got that interchange down that side. But maybe having that natural left footer sort of consistently there and being able to, make those forward runs and whip crosses in, maybe just gives us something a little different. It was something new, wasn't it? I mean, I wonder whether it continues. Maybe when Hansen and Wright are back, maybe we switch back and do something different. But as a one-off and something different to try, particularly with, by the sounds of how Laird performed the weekend. I mean, obviously we've seen the goals back. Given the sort of noise around Laird's performance the weekend, maybe pushing Anderson to that right-hand side and having that more solidity next to Clara and Bielik in Davies. Maybe just helps us feel a little bit more balanced all round rather than having those large gaps into. I mean, Cochrane probably got forward a bit, maybe got a bit excited and got forward a bit too much at times, which has left those two exposed, or we've just pumped too many bodies forward. So, I think the only issue I had was Bielik got himself caught out probably more than once, and I can't remember exactly when it was last season, but there were times where Bielik was covering so much space in midfield that he just looked like he was going to pull a hamstring at any moment. I think he actually got injured in the end.
Yeah.
And having Bielik covering that much space, seeing him step forward 30 yards from the opposition goal, then trying to chase Harper back and give away a couple of needless fouls, and you just wonder. I thought he was actually fortunate to stay on the pitch at the end. I think the referee kind of decided the game was up, and there's no point sending someone off with 30 seconds to go at 2-0.
Yeah.
But he made a challenge right at the death where he's basically, stopped someone breaking on the counter attack, and you're thinking, I've looked afterwards, and he committed 5 fouls during the game. Probably fortunate to stay on the pitch in the end. So probably something to look to longer term, whether whether Laird ends up back on the right hand side and it becomes a proper 3-4-3, or whether we just deal with the fact that Bielik's out there and he's got covering Clara. I guess we'll see moving forward. Yeah,
you don't necessarily want Bielik exposed in those wide channels, do you? Because Vincent Harper, looked quite energetic to me, and he looked as though he wanted to get at Bielik and take him on. And as you say, thing is with Bielik, once he gets a booking, a lot of players, you think, right, and they're sort of switch into slightly more conservative mode, don't they? Christian doesn't seem to do that. Christian seems to just play the way that Christian plays and go in for tackles, and he doesn't sort of dial it back by a couple of notches.
I thought it worked quite well, to be fair. Like, Clara and Bielik were really aggressive last night, and I thought they got on top of the battle with McGuinness, which could have been an awkward one given the sort of size and experience of him. There was 2 probably needless and quite naughty challenges. I think Clara shoved Bird into the hoardings down the bottom corner, and then later on, for almost no need, Bielik just went through the back of him and conceded the free kick. A couple of sort of, I suppose, distasteful, aggressive. It depends which way you want to look at it. But they were, really aggressive on the night, and it actually helped us, step forward. And maybe having those 3 centre halves that are big, strong, and aggressive is going to be key, just to allowing us to get on the front foot defensively and win those battles when we need to. Rather than, you could see the goals of the weekend, we just don't close the ball down quick enough, and we're not strong enough in those battles. And it's cost us. So maybe having Bielik there and having the 3 centre halves, not just for the set pieces, but also for us being able to play on the front foot, maybe you don't need the pace there because you're winning the battles before they've even come near us.
Yeah, indeed. There is something comforting to Ben Davies as well, isn't there? Having him back there, I wrote in a piece today that Blues seem to be at their most composed and their most solid when Ben Davies is on the pitch. And I thought that was the case again last night. So, yeah, will be interesting to see if that was a one-night only thing with Bielik, or, whether as teams get more physical and, pitches get wetter and it becomes more of an arm wrestle, whether that will indeed be a tactic that Chris Davis employs going forward.
I think Cochrane mentioned as well in his post-match interview that after the first goal, he essentially had almost license to pick and choose when he went forward. I think he said maybe sat a little bit more afterwards. So there probably was that extra protection there too, and maybe it was something that Davis has thought about where, Cochrane will probably make better decisions in terms of when to get forward and when not to get forward. So we did have that solid base there at all times.
Yeah, indeed. Just looking at the league table, then Blues are now back up to third. They are 1 point behind Wrexham in second with 2 games in hand, and 5 points behind Wycombe, who snatched another victory last night with an injury time winner over Lincoln, I think it was. And they're on 38 points from 16 games. I think they won 10 straight now. They are on a run. Now, what Blues can't do is they can't get overly stressed about what Wycombe are doing. And they can only win the games that are in front of them. And as things stand, 33 points from 15 games is, 101 points over the course of a season. That will be good enough to get Blues up. So everything's okay. Back on track. All right, Ryan?
Yeah, we've won the game. We've still only lost twice all season, and we've responded to both defeats with victory straight afterwards. I don't really like looking at the league table at the moment because with the amount of games that are in hand, I think you can look at us being in 4th place and sort of go, oh, what's happened there?
Yeah.
With the games in hand and, everything we've got to sort of play moving forward, I think the picture will become a lot clearer by, is it the 4th of January after this 12-game spell?
Yeah.
Picture will probably look a lot clearer then as to where we are, what we're doing, and hopefully, all being well, we'll be back at the top of the table. And I think I'm also still very much of the mind that I feel like the other teams are probably playing at their best at the moment, whereas we're still finding our feet in terms of what we're doing. And the best is probably still yet to come. So maybe that's just me being a bit biased there, but it still feels like it's going to click into place for us, and we'll go on that winning run. We'll go back to the top of the table, and we should be fine from there on. Hopefully, it comes to pass.
Yeah, indeed. You're allowed to be biased. This is a Birmingham City podcast. I struggle to disagree with any of that. It all feels under control, and yes, the Shrewsbury defeat was a shock, but it was no more than that. And I was really pleased last night to see that response. So it is FA Cup, second round of the FA Cup this weekend, away to Blackpool. Are you feeling the FA Cup, Ryan? You fancied a long cup run, and it's essentially a 59th and 60th and 61st game this season.
I fancy it. It feels nice to be going into these games, I suppose, preparing to actually go in and try and win them rather than same with the EFL Trophy. It feels like we're going in to win each game rather than just, we've got a cup game, we just need to get through this one and get through to the next round kind of thing.
Yeah.
It actually feels like Davies has got the mindset of, I want to win, I want to go as far as possible in every single cup competition, which gives you a little bit more of a feeling of, right, let's get on it and let's try and do it. That said, obviously going into the game probably needing to make 5 or 6 changes because you've got, as I'm sure probably get onto, Blackpool Sunday, Stockport on Wednesday, Barnsley away on the Saturday. Then I believe the EFL Trophy game is the following Tuesday, and then it's Bristol Rovers at home on the Saturday. So a run of 7 games in 3 weeks, and then you've got a 9-day break, and then I think again with 5 games in 12 days or something along those lines. So it's I suppose, cautious optimism going into the weekend where you feel like you've got an opportunity to win and, go through to the third round, potentially get that big draw. And at the same time, you're going away to fellow League One opposition and probably going to change half your team. So
yeah,
it'd be an interesting game, that's for certain. It'd be nice to see a couple of other players get a run out and, see who's ready to stand up and sort of stake a claim for an opportunity now.
is Mark Leonard one of those couple of other players?
Surely he's got to be. To be fair, Peck went off. He injured his foot last night, didn't he? And I presume it's just a knock, but maybe an impact injury. Let's give him a week off and bring him back in for Stockport if all being well.
Yeah,
I think Leonard's definitely one. You'd imagine Laird probably returns to the team. Harrison Dykes probably in line for opportunities, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think Yokoyama will step in just yet. I think the other two that are interesting for me are whether Sanderson gets a run at the back or whether he's done now until Christmas, until emergency. And Gardner Hickman as well. Gardner Hickman's the other one as well, because I don't know whether he'll change both of the centre midfielders or whether he'll, will he play Gardner Hickman at right back and leave Laird out? It'd be an interesting sort of balance in terms of how he does that. Yeah,
indeed. I'm just looking at the team that he took to Sutton, and it was Ryan Alsop in goal. It was what you'd call then the first choice back four of Laird and Cochrane at full-back, Sinclair and Davies at centre-backs, Peck and Iwata in the middle, Anderson, Harrison, Williamson as the three, and Stansfield as the one. There wasn't much rotation. Well, there wasn't any rotation at Sutton. I wonder if that's because... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I think the other side of that, though, was we had a week's break, didn't we? We played Fulham Academy in the week, and then we had a week's break between the two games. So it kind of made sense to bring the first teamers back in, whereas now this feels like the game that's almost in the way of the league.
Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, I guess one of the obvious changes is Peacock Farrell in goal. I wonder if he'll do that. Laird, I think you're right. We'll come back in. I think Ben Davies will stay in the side. Clara isn't far off the minutes that Cochrane's played, really, is he? He's been very, very, very well, heavily raced rather than lightly raced. And Peck, as you say, I want Peck and Iwata really not needs breaking up, but they do need a rotation, need a resting. And I'd have no issues with Gardner, Hickman, and Leonard in those positions. If it completely has a new broom and brushes out the central midfield department. I'm desperate to see Yokoyama start another game. I really am, and I get that that Davies is worried about the back door. And Yokoyama got caught against Northampton, didn't he, in that game, not tracking a runner.
It feels like dicey ground to give Anderson another start, having completed 90 minutes last night. And also, I know he obviously only played half hour on the weekend, Denny, so maybe he's a bit fresher, but it always feels a bit dicey giving Anderson so many starts in a row. One option to come back in, does Buchanan come back in? Give Cochrane a much needed rest. Not that he ever looks like he needs a rest, but
no, indeed. I think the 21s have got a game this Friday, and I wonder if Buchanan will play in that. Which means if he does, he probably, he might scrape onto the bench. But for the first team, I don't know that he'd start.
I suppose the other question: how fit is Bailey? Because he had the knock before the international break. Then is he come back and is he fully fit and firing, or is he still not quite right and maybe he steps out the weekend? So
we'll find out. This is Chris Davies' press conference tomorrow, so we'll run through the sort of the injury questions. And I think Jay got his foot stood on as well when he came off last night as well. So there are 2 or 3 things to be mindful of on the injury front. So we'll find out who's fit, and then later in the week we'll come back and maybe do a predicted 11. Thank you, Ryan, for your time. Appreciate it as ever. Thank you all for listening. It's, as I say, press conference on Thursday, off to Blackpool on Sunday, and it's a keep right on from both of us.